So, Adrian Incledon-Webber, welcome to Wisdom Keepers of Earth. It's so beautiful to have you here. I'm just going to give the audience a little bit of a background on you. So, Adrian is one of the foremost house healers in the world and has a unique way of dealing with geopathic stress in people's homes and has helped many families live healthier and more comfortable lives. Running a busy estate agency. So when you were doing that, I guess you ran into a lot of issues with homes, maybe what you call the divorce house syndrome. And sort of that led you into this understanding of how to work with homes in general as a being that needed clearing in order to help people sell their homes. So Adrian is also the former vice president of the British Society of Dowsers and past chair of their Earth Energies group, Dowsing and Health group. He is the author of 2 beautiful books, unique books, on healing homes, both of which have been described as the Bibles of geopathic stress. His 3rd book, entitled Spirit and Earth, was co-authored with Tim Walter and is a guide to modern-day spiritual living. You are well known for your talks and in-depth house healing, and I know you teach courses on that. Mm-hmm. And that empowers others to help themselves and their families within their dwellings and their land. Yes?
Indeed.
Thank you. Well, thank you. So tell us, please, to make a kind of a history short.
Yep.
I want to know more about this divorce healing, running into this issue of this pattern, but also, really what touches your heart about doing this work. So a little history and then moving.
Yeah, I suppose really starting from a fairly early age, I was always quite a sensitive kid. And it used to be that if I got home and my parents had an argument, it doesn't matter how many hours before, I could always pick up on the atmosphere, which it's not a great gift to have when you're that sort of age. You just want to be a kid charging around the place, climbing trees and enjoying yourself. You don't want to be sort of kind of the peacemaker between parents. And they lasted. They didn't get divorced. They were fine all the way through life. But that's really what I got started off with. And then you go through teenage years and you go through work and bits and pieces. And it wasn't really until... Well, I've been dowsing for years. I had some dowsing rods when I was 7 years old, so it's always been with me over that time. But really, when I started getting very serious about it, I was probably in my mid-40s. Although, like anybody that's doing healing, you kind of wish you could turn the clock back and start doing it when you're like 20. So you've got a lot more time to play with. But hey, we work with what we've been given. And it wasn't really until... my business partner and I got the business going, the estate agents or real estate business going, walking into lots and lots of people's houses that I began to realize that certain houses would sell very quickly because they just felt so comfortable inside. And others you'd walk in and you'd just kind of cringe slightly and go, I wonder what's been going on here. And then you walk around and you see it's a family house, 1 toothbrush in the toothbrush holder. And you know that perhaps dad's moved out or mum's moved out or something's gone on. And they were always the houses that a lot of people would come back and said, it ticks every box, but we just don't like the house. And, you begin to then see that emerging pattern. And there was one particular house that really kickstarted my venture into what I'm doing now, was what I would call a divorce house. And it came on the market every 3 years. We were young estate agents, we were up to 30 in those days. And this lady, the house sale had just fallen through. So we'd only been in business for about 2 months. And so she called me and said, can you come round and put the house on, please? We valued it, put the house on and found a buyer pretty quickly in those days. They were getting divorced. New buyer moved in. 3 years down the line, a phone call to say, can you come and value the house for us? You walk in and you suddenly get, that overwhelming emotional feeling that you just want to kind of turn and run. And you walk in, they're getting divorced, you put the house on the market, find a buyer for it 3 years down the line, yet again, they get the phone call. And that happened for about 23, 24 years, that awful repeating pattern. Yeah.
And this is the same house.
Same house. Yeah.
Oh,
there were
my
others, but not quite as frequent. So this was the one that really got me into doing what I'm doing now. I've been wanting to do healing for years and years and years, and I've been seeing a palmist in the very early days of the business. And we were great estate agents, but lousy business people. We hadn't got a clue how to run a business. And a friend of mine suggested, look, why don't you come and see this palmist? He can give you a bit of guidance. Without realizing he was probably one of the best in the world at the time. And he muttered those immortal words, you're going to be doing this short. Estate agency is fine. You'll be able to put your kids through school and do what you need to do with the money that you will earn. But once those responsibilities have gone, then you're going to start getting really into the healing world. And of course, I was a commercial estate agent, I think, whatever. As much as I wanted to, desperately, it's that lovely comment, you'll know when the time's right. And you're thinking, have I missed it? Is it tomorrow? Was it yesterday? It's just one of those bizarre things,
Yeah. So wait.
Yeah.
Palmist, literally someone who read
somebody who read the palms of your hand.
Okay. So you were very open.
Very. He used to ink your palms up. He was superb, just amazing, had the kids done. And so he just said, look, it's going to happen. And it was many years later that I was getting fed up with the business and the politics. I decided to get out of it. And I was doing a lot of hands-on healing at that stage. And it wasn't really until one day a lady came in for some healing. And I just suddenly thought, it's not her. She's not the problem. It's where she's living. And I think all healers suddenly get that wow moment when you almost hear the trumpets going off and somebody upstairs says, thank God he's finally got it. We've been putting all these signs his way over the years, but he's not been looking. So we finally got him. So it was really that then started to do some house healing work with people. And it just rolled on very quickly from there. And that was that. Never looked back.
That's amazing. So wait, you were doing healing while you were an estate agent?
Yeah, to the last couple of years I was in the business still, but I was really desperately trying to get out of it. And the healing work just started.
Was this hands healing, dowsing healing?
Yeah, pretty dowsing came into it, but it was I got taught by a wonderful guy called Andy Roberts, who's quite a well-known healer down in the south of England. Oh. And he said, look, we're going to do Reiki 1, 2, and 3 on you now. So you probably will never use it, but we're going to do it anyway. It's a good kickstart. It's a good stepping stone to the direction that you will be going in, because, you won't be known as a Reiki healer. You'll be known as something else. But he didn't realize at the time what was going to happen, and I didn't either with the housing. But it just dovetailed, Melinda. This is the big thing about it, that if you look back on it, you can see exactly how you've been led by the nose to do this business. But at the time, you just didn't realize.
Yeah.
It's that kind of that moment. And so I started and doing hands-on healing with people, and then it just progressed from there to that final stage where, they just said, look, you've got to start working on people's homes as much as the person. And that was it, really. And I'm thinking, well, what do I know about healing people's homes? So I picked up the dowsing rod and started asking all the questions that you need to do in a very logical manner. And then from that logic came the spiritual, became the healing, knowing what to do. And it just went on from there.
So your methodical way of seeking how to do this work, my guess is you were doing this very early on. I mean, what time time frame wise, house healing, what in the early days, there probably weren't a lot of house healers. So you were very few. You were paving the way for that.
Yeah, and there's a very good chap I met called David Lockwood who was doing sort of house healing in his own way. Joey Corn as well, who was doing his.
Yes.
But I just felt I needed a different approach. I needed that kind of logical approach. There were certain things with geopathic stress, the earth energies, but to me, it needed to be more than that. You needed to work on the people. You needed to look at spirits in the house that needed to be moved on. So it was really starting off in a very basic way and then really asking that final question, is there anything else detrimental to the family I need to find?
That's the best question of all, because they often say yes, and then you're stuck with, what is it?
Yeah, is it the color of the wallpaper or the front? And it just, thankfully, I think they took pity on me, and I used to get these amazing messages coming through, which I didn't know what they meant. I just had to really sit down and actually work my way logically through it all. And it's a process, when I teach courses on this, it's a process that you can teach to people. And that's what I love about it. It's the logic and it's the spiritual that combines so easily. Yeah. And that people diss one or the other, but you need to combine two to actually do what we're doing these days.
So my feeling is that you were receiving this information and you were, as you say, logically going through these steps that you've discovered, and then people were maybe asking you to teach them.
Yep.
Is this how the first book came? House healing?
No, the first book, I was a person that never used to like standing up in front of crowds at all. Even 4 or 5 people, I'd get quite nervous. Now I love it. You get this adrenaline flow when you're teaching courses, giving talks, as you rightly know. The first book came, it just felt right to publish something. Now, one of my old English teachers told me years ago that I would never, ever be able to write a book. And the reason why she explained it, she said, because you write as though you're talking to somebody in the room, whereas most books are written in a very different way. Yes, they're informative, but they're written in a very different way, in a very logical way. So you just kind of put your words down in the book as though I'm sitting in the room with you, for instance, which a lot of people love. And I don't know how I do it. I just do it. And the first book, I just really wanted to get that information out to people so that they could begin to help themselves. Now, okay, a lot of people will say it's too complicated, although it's fairly down to earth, but I don't want to do it myself. Can you do it? So the business has flowed well because of the book. But it was really trying to explain to people that, look, even if an estate agent could do this, or an ex-estate agent can do this, there's help for everybody else in the world. And it was trying to say to people, this is how I discovered what needed to be done. This is why I discovered it. So there were quite a lot of test cases in there, or sample cases. And this is how you go about doing the healing. Mm-hmm. So the first book actually flowed quite well after about 2 years. I thought I'd done enough. And a friend of mine said, no, that's a pamphlet. You need to do at least 5 times that amount of words for it to be a book. Okay. Bit disparaging, but hey, fine. Okay. So I sort of sat down for another 6 months and just got it written. It'd take me 2 years to write about, I think it was about 25,000 words. And I thought, that's got to be enough. No. 100,000 words, and then we can edit it to make sure that it all reads well, was fine. And to me, it was just, how can I do that? That is crazy amount of words, but it flowed and I got it done, and that's fine. So that sold well. Go on.
Well, I'm curious as to know what were some of the case studies, like the ones that really stood out where you felt like, I'm getting this. This is working. The feedback is coming in, the wonder of that awe moment of, this stuff really works. I'm supposed to believe it works. I'm the one that's doing it, but wow, this really works.
Yeah. I think there's so much of that. For me, it's when you're working with, say, children who are seeing spirits in the house. Now, they don't know what's going on. They don't know that mum's phoned me up or emailed me to say, can you help? And to me, it's so humbling when you suddenly get that email back or the Zoom call, as you can now do, you couldn't in those days, to say, it's gone, they're sleeping well. Whereas, one was saying, hi, Dad, when it wasn't his dad, now moved on, and suddenly they're sleeping well, or they're just lovely, well-adjusted kids. So that was really the big humbling start to it all. But I always love the humor in there as well when you've done a house cleansing. There was one lady who I knew quite well, but she said, can you do it without my husband knowing? I said, yeah, of course we can. I just checked with upstairs to make sure that, whatever I do, they were allowed to go through, which they said yes. His study was full of old newspapers. She said you could hardly get in there. He could get in there with his cup of tea. He could sort of sneak around onto his chair, and that was it. He had piles of paper all over the place. So she said, can you do anything? And I said, well, we'll just do a house healing anyway. And it was about a week later, she phoned me up and said, you'd never guess what's going on. Now, go on. My husband's in his office with a huge bin bag, cleaning all the old paperwork out with this bemused look on his face because he doesn't know why he's doing it. But he's got this overwhelming need to actually declutter his office. So it's brilliant. It's just that sort of stuff. You're thinking, yeah, they've got a sense of humor up there, haven't they?
Yes, they do.
But with so much, there were so many cases in there that, it just, everyone that came through just spurs you on to do another healing and another one and another one. Because, yes, you kind of know it works, but until you get that feedback from people, you can never be sure.
Yes.
Although they kept saying, I kept getting a pat on the head, probably why I've got no hair now. Of course it works. It works. Just get on and do it. Shut up. And just,
Yeah. So have you ever had those, well, I'm sure you have, those moments where it wasn't working? And the default is, what am I doing wrong? What am I not seeing? What's the problem? And for the audience to know, those practitioners out there, when you come across something that's not working,
Yep.
How do you deal with that, Adrian?
Right. I think it's one of those things that, as you know, I know it's going to work, but the timing might not be quite right. And one of the first cases, I suddenly thought, yeah, I've lost it. They're not listening. They're at lunch hour, or they've just abandoned me completely, And I suddenly picked up my pendulum and said, is the timing right for them? No. Okay. Is it going to happen? Yeah. When's it going to happen? We're talking about weeks or months? A couple of weeks, 1, 2, 3, about 2 weeks. So I emailed the person and said, don't worry about it. Things are beginning to start happening. And what happened, it was just as though somebody had thrown a switch and all hell broke loose in the house. She said, it just went completely crazy. The kids went crazy. I went crazy. My husband went crazy. It just things flying around the place. And it was it was needed to actually show them and convince them that what I was doing was going to work. Because they were quite kind of, well, yeah, we'll give it a go, but we don't know if it's going to work or not. So it had to get to that fever pitch. And then she said the next day, everything calmed down. It was like, you had this crashing wave come in, and the next day it was perfectly calm. The kids were great. Everybody felt so much better. So I do get these, and I do check with upstairs now to say, when's the right time for me to start the work on this particular house? It may be the next day, in which case I pull them forward, or it might be in a couple of months' time. So they know what needs to be done. So, it's just every time that happens, nothing's going on. I check, is it going to happen? Yes. Is it going to be one of those? Yes. So I don't worry about it anymore.
So it's not about not having faith in what you're doing. It's knowing that perhaps the timing isn't right or something else needs to happen. And This is something I try to share with my students and people who work with me is that, look, I may just be a part of your journey. If you come to me and I can help you the best that I can, the way that I know how, then the way that I have faith that will help you. But I may only be a part of your journey. So there's in that physical healing realm, it feels like I want to equate the physical realm to the healing of the house idea, to have the faith that is going to happen. However, a physical human body and choice. I mean, do you ever feel like the house has a choice?
No. Houses do talk to people. I know that for a fact. It's people say we don't want to move, but we're going to move. And I think that with so much of this, Belinda, it's so difficult because I know it's going to work, but having that self-doubt, and I think that's what keeps us all humble. It keeps us grounded to say, we are so lucky that what we're doing actually works. But I'm fully aware if they want to switch it off one day, there's nothing I can do about it. So I tend to keep myself very, very grounded. I live quite a normal life until you walk somewhere and people say, what do you do for a living? And I tell them, oh, right, okay. And they just wander off and go and talk to somebody else, unless you're a sheep farmer up here or can drive a tractor or a combine harvester. It's a bit kind of, whoa, one or two people will chat about it. But, but going back to your question, the house does have a choice. Yes, it does. But I think so much of the house, the atmosphere is built up by who lives there now, but who's been in there, friends, family, who's owned the house before, their relationship perhaps with the husband or the wife or the kids, or just an unhappy bachelor or unhappy spinster. You've got to try and clear the brickwork of all the stuff that's happened in that house in the past. And, often people go, I've just heard the house go, thank heaven that's happened. And, it just feels so calm. Now, I rarely ever visit clients' houses, either before the healing or after the healing, because, it's a long way to go. And, I don't want to charge people, 500 quid or 1,000 quid to sort of travel to the States and back. It would be lovely. But there was this one lady I was working on, and I can't say who it was, but a very well-known, I guess you could call her a celebrity, very, very big house down in Somerset. And she had quarters down there for guests and friends to come and stay. So I went down there and I met a lady who'd been doing some work with her. We walked around the big house and it felt horrible. I mean, the stuff she had in there was beautiful, really lovely quality stuff. But the house just felt, A, unlived in, and B, it didn't want people to actually be there either. And there were some houses you walk around, you just, not nosy, but, like an estate agent, you'd like to know what's around the corner and the kitchen units or whatever. But this was just, I couldn't care. I walked around and then, excuse me, I walked around the house and then I went back to the quarters where I'm staying and started doing some healing work. And over 2 to 3 days, I did work on the house. And at the end of the 4th day, I went back in the house. It felt so different. It was just as though the house had said, thank you, come in, you're welcome. And it sparkled. It was just light and airy and, welcoming.
A sparkling house. This is my dream.
Yeah. And it's like, I just, I'm always surprised about how well it feels.
Yes. The sparkling house. I love that idea. And, my house in Glen Ellen, before it burned down in the Tubbs fire, when I had a 90-minute drive from San Francisco to Glen Ellen. And I would look at my house and it felt like a beacon of light. I could feel that. And some places, I guess you look at them and because we put a lot of love and effort into that home. But I'm thinking people can do that for themselves. They can just bring in some beautiful light, like you would see yourself, through your mind's eye, you're all light. You can do that for your home and maybe even close your eyes and pick out the dark spots in the home. Yep. And then your book would be a perfect avenue to figure out, what to do next if you see something like that. So book 2, 1,500 words in book 1. And I'm thinking to myself, that is a lot of writing on house healing. So what's in book 2 that's not in book 1?
Yeah,
Why
yeah, I was as surprised as anybody to actually think I want to write a second book. Well, apart from the one I did with Tim, The Spirit on Earth. It was all the new questions that had come through as I began to pick up on more and more problems in people's houses. And don't forget, energies do change. You know, we're now in the 21st century. The first book was written at the end of the 20th. And, you know, life changes, energies change. And of course, you've got to keep up with it. So that one question I used to ask to say, is there anything detrimental? Sorry, that's my wife. that I need to find to be able to carry out the complete healing forms part of the second book. So it's delving back into one or two of the questions from the first book, but it's very much of a new way of looking at things. Obviously, the healing section has been updated, so it includes all the new questions in there. But it was also how the new questions came through, what we needed to do about it, updating a lot of the questions and things from book one. So they work together very well. They're very separate books. People often say, shall I buy one or two? I said, well, start at number one is the best thing, because it's a very much of a how I started off, to say, look, you know, this is how I started. This is a bit about dowsing, how you just pick up a set of dowsing rods and a pendulum, begin to use them. Take it easy. Just, you know, you're not going to run a marathon the next day, but just read through the book, take it piece by piece, and actually just start working with what I've got in there, and you will get there very easily and very quickly. Don't worry about it. Just use, you know, it's very much of a stepping stone. It's teaching that easy way of actually doing house healing.
Well, what I noticed about book one that I was flipping through is that there are, not only are you addressing the home or the property, but you're also addressing the person. There's a you know, prayers or sayings, chants. For lack of better words, I'm going to use prayer idea.
Yeah.
Where you actually go in and you know, there's preparation for the self.
Yes.
There's preparation. There's, I read one of your prayers, and it's quite long because it deals with everything having to do not only with the home, but the physical system, as far as I remember. And then getting ready, but plus a meditation that goes with it.
Yes.
So you douse into these certain areas, and then there's a meditation that follows that, which is the preparation to moving forward. So it's very much about, it's a holistic approach. It's not just, okay, let's just work on the house. You look at it from the whole being of not only the home or the property, but the person who's beginning to do the work on the property. Because we have to be clean, clear, pure vessels of this healing energy. And in order to get there, we have to, right?
Yeah, it's often down to preparation work, isn't it? And I think we all have our own ways of preparing. I've tried to keep it as basic and grounded, as simple as I possibly can for people, because, you know, life can become very complicated. You look at some healing processes and you think, I haven't got time to do that. You know, I want to get it done just like that. Okay, sometimes you can, depending on how tight times are. You know, you can almost click your fingers and say, look, I just need that healed as quickly as we can. But you need, because a lot of the stuff that we find is human emotion based. So, you know, you've got to actually work on that as much as working on the people, as much as working on the house and the land it's built upon, which, you know, could have been sacred land. You know, you find in the States, you know, we don't know 2,000 years ago what Native American tribe might have been there. Over here, what abbey actually owned all the land. So in some ways, it could still be sacred land that needs to be deconsecrated, even though it was maybe 500, 600, 700 years ago.
Mm.
So there's a lot to look at, hence the reason for number two.
Right. So, and you also do these healings on the people. If you find that there's an emotional component to what's happening with the people in the home, how do you address that with them?
In the early days, I would put a lot more detail in my report than I do now. A lot of people would, a lot of my clients would say, I don't want to know. I don't care. Just clear it. Don't tell me what I've got or what might be in the house because I get scared. Fine. Okay. So I tend to limit it. If I find any really, really deep, heavy emotional areas, I will just rate it between 0 and -10 and just say that we found 50 areas or 70 areas of human problems. It could be an argument. It could many, many different things.
Right.
But I don't delve too deeply into it because obviously that can be raking over the coals. I thought I'd forgotten about that. Actually, Adrian's just told you what happened. Oh my God, I've got to try and deal with this in my own way yet again. So in some ways, the less information you give people, the better, unless it's information that they need to be able to help them move forward and to help them heal.
I noticed that when I was writing a book about, basic energies, that if two people stood in the same spot over and over, and they would always gravitate to that spot and they would argue in that spot.
Yep.
It felt like it left this energetic pattern there where it's almost like all this dirt came in, and then every time someone walks through it, they feel it, but they don't know why.
Absolutely.
Yes. But what's also very interesting, and I thought this was interesting from a psychological standpoint, whenever a child would get into trouble, it was always the dinner table, come and sit down, we're going to have a chat. And they're getting this feedback about what they need to change about themselves at the same place where they're having a meal. And I thought, oh my God, I bet you that really changes how you feel about your food.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. It happened to me. I mean, that's all that it's in my book that, I'd kind of almost call them power artifacts that, the more you sat in that chair, the more your father had a go at you. It was always at school, table. How are you doing at school? Never a good question to ask me. I hated school, didn't do very well. I learned what I needed to learn to survive in life, And Dad would say, how's school? It's not very good. Why? What are you doing wrong? Blah, blah, blah. So after a while, not only did the dining table get kind of infected with all this really heavy energy, so did the chair I used to sit in. So that was another way that I started looking at power artifacts to see how it affected me in the first place. My initial career was I was an antique dealer up in the West End of London in Bond Street. And I was picking up some of the furniture there, just whoa. And some of the most beautiful furniture in the showroom, people would just walk straight past and ignore it because it had this real heavy energy to it. And that's really what got me looking at power artifacts.
Awesome. That's beautiful. I love that idea. Okay, so I happen to know, because you shared with me at one point, that you had done some personal journeying through Nepal.
Yep.
So not only are we talking about you as an antique dealer, estate agent, moving into energy work and a healer, but you went on a personal journey as well. You listened to the call of this, bringing yourself into a place of more of a meditative, maybe learning more, bringing more wisdom in. Tell me a little bit about your calling to trek around.
Well, the first one was India many years, then it was Nepal, and then the big one was Tibet with an Indian friend of mine called Subhash. And the two of us went through Tibet. We were there for just over a month. We walked around Mount Kailash, which is a holy mountain for the Buddhists and the Hindus. We did our prayers around some of the Dalai Lama's houses that, he was obviously in when he was a very small child before he left, before the Chinese came in. So for me, it was a very hard journey. I had so many, what I would say at the time was psychic attacks, but it was just really picking up on the the sacred energy of the particular site that in the early days I couldn't handle. Now, knowing now what I know, then it wouldn't have been a problem, but it was just almost their way of saying, you're going to experience this, mate, whether you like it or not. Learn from it and then be able to use that in the healing work that you're doing. So Tibet was just mind-blowing. Absolutely.
And you were just drawn there. There was something that said, you need to go do this.
Yep. For many, many years beforehand. And my first ever trek, I met Subhash, and we said to ourselves, we are going to go to Tibet. And it's something that's always been in the back of my mind. I never thought I'd ever get there, but it just happened to work. Got out of a state agency, had time on my hands, and thought, right, Tibet, here we go.
Yeah. So you have a lot of personal journey experience where you've done some real work on yourself in order to be of service where you are today. And I think that's a key idea that I would like the audience to understand as well, is that it's our inner work that allows us to bring forward the energies that we're called to work with. You know, whether it's physical, mental, emotional healing, home healing, land healing, you know, object healing.
Yes.
That we have, that it's up to us to, if we're called, if you get that inkling, go for it. You know, listen to that whisper, because when spirit whispers in your ear, it's so subtle, but it's time to do it. Right?
Yeah, I think mine was more like a size 9 boot up the backside. You know?
That's
you're going to do this. Yeah, whether you like it or not, mate, you are going to be doing this.
If you don't get the message, the subtle messages, the first couple of times, yes, the boot up the backside definitely shows up.
It gets worse. I know. But it's a kind of strange thing for, you know, I think we all do this. You know, healing is, I think, innate within most of us. But it's whether you want to go down that journey. And if you start going down that journey, that rabbit hole, if you like, you know, the first thing you've got to learn about is yourself. And you've got to look at it and go, you know, which bits don't I love about myself? And I always say to people when I'm teaching a course, we are 100% unique human beings. You know, we all, yes, I'd like to be 6'4", you know, I don't want to be sort of 5'10" and a smidge, you know, there's certain things that you would like to change physically, but inside, you know, we've all got this God spark, if you like, which is what the Buddhists teach us. And if we can just link into that, it's amazing what we can achieve.
Yes.
But you've got to look at yourself and go, I love who I am. Not in a big-headed way, but you've got to be able to love yourself, almost become selfish before you can become selfless. And once you've actually got that belief in yourself, then I think you can then start to work really, really well helping other people. Yes. But you've got to start somewhere.
Yes. Yes, that's very true, Adrian. So what inspires you to continue? Who inspires you? What inspires you?
I think it's just working with the universe in all its glory. You know, it's going outside the front door and looking at the flowers that suddenly bloomed over a couple of days of sunshine. The dog swimming in the river, little things like that. You know, it's those miracles that happen every day that we just get so used to, we just don't see them. You know, rainbows. You know, I couldn't make a rainbow unless you've got crystals that, you know, suddenly reflect the light. I couldn't make a rainbow to save my life. Maybe you could find out how to do it by cutting the crystals. But it's just life itself, I think. I mean, that sounds maybe a bit trite, but it's the people you're meeting. It's the people when you're teaching a course that you can help to actually help themselves to understand, to get them to move forward so that, yeah, they too fall in love with themselves. They're helping their families. They're helping their friends. They're helping their kids. It's just magical.
Yeah. I love that. We have lots of rainbows here in Hawaii.
Yeah, I bet. Yes.
Wonderful to wake up in the morning and see a rainbow. There's usually one that goes right over my valley. It's
Fabulous.
yeah, I'm so lucky.
Yeah. And it is,
Well,
I think it just keeps you going, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. It does. Yesterday, a cardinal, they look kind of, they're not all red, but they have a red head. I'm not sure what kind of bird it is. Brought a full yellow flower. It wasn't a plumeria, it was a bigger than that. Literally in its beak, the entire flower landed on my railing, sat there, put it down, picked it up, and then flew away. I've never seen anything like that before. Never. I thought, wow, thanks.
Yeah, and it is. But it's that attitude of gratitude, isn't it? The more you realize, the more you thank. Yeah, things start to happen in big ways.
Yeah, and I'm getting messages all the time that even during these, how are you handling, by the way, these cosmic energies coming in? I'm getting like feathers. I'm getting messages from my team all the time that, hey, it's all good. It's okay. Hang in there.
Yep. And that's it, really, isn't it? It's getting those little messages coming through. And, I have a total 100% belief that everything's going to be okay. And I just rely on upstairs to do what they need to do to make it that way. My life's fairly simplistic. And most people would say it can't be doing the work that you're doing. But because it's just what I do, it just becomes part of my daily ritual. I've got clients over there that I'm working on at the moment, feedback from others, because that's always important. But as you do a healing, you get feedback, you do a little bit more healing and shift layers as they come through, because depending on how dark the house is, there's always a little bit more to be done. But it's just magical. It's just, yeah, I never thought I would get here, and that's the big thing, just keep working at it. If this is what you want to do, keep working at it and you'll get there.
Excellent. Tell us how the audience can get in touch with you, take a course. Do you teach online for those of us that aren't in your
I'm starting to. I need to, because of all the new information that's come through. I used to teach my courses over 2 separate weekends with about 6-8 weeks in between, so people can start to practice. I'm just rewriting my courses, and hopefully later on this year, it'll be over 3 weekends, because not only was I shattered at the end of both weekends, everybody who attended, you could see the shutters come down and go, this is way too much information. Thank you very much. So that's being done. So there'll be online courses. I'll be teaching courses in person as well. My website is dowsingspirits.co.uk. My email is on there, but it's simply adrian@dowsingspirits.co.uk. They can reach me via Zoom, but it's often best to sort of email me first, because I get so busy, I often haven't got time to answer the telephone. So I can do email in the evening and then get on with my healing during the course of the day. Otherwise, a bit like you could spend all day answering emails and not do any healing, which is kind of not quite what it's all about. So, I'm contactable, but it's best to sort of email rather than anything else at the moment.
Yes. So words of wisdom. I hate to put you in the hot seat. What would you like to share with the audience about the work that they could do for themselves, perhaps, about working with their own homes?
Yeah,
I just start right away.
Yeah, keep it simple. A good thing is to actually be able to work with the light, to work with the universe, and work with Mother Earth. So combining, if you like, the white light or the healing white light from above and the beautiful healing energies from Mother Earth, combining those in the house, almost at cellular level, and just imagine this beautiful energy just pushing through the house, just removing anything that's detrimental or inappropriate to the family. That's a great, easy way to start. And then just gradually, I'm not going to say buy one of my books, but it's a great, easy way to start, is cleansing the house, cleansing the family that way as well. That's going to really start things moving forwards very, very quickly.
Do you ever, a quick question, do you ever advocate using anything like Palo Santo or white sage smudging or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. And I do say, I love the smell of sage, and I do sage the house quite often. But I tend to say to people, that it's a bit like moving into a house that's not been lived in for, say, 5 years and getting the duster out. Excuse me. Well, I'll repeat that. So it's a bit like moving into a house that's not been touched for 5 years, and it's just covered in dust and grime. People get the duster out, but you need somebody to do the industrial work first. So saging is great from a day-to-day basis, but you've really got to get beneath that. You've really got to get to the human emotional junk, which, if it's really deep, saging just can't touch it. So if you have to kind of put your marigolds on, your gloves on, and really sort of dig down, get dirty, get some of the real heavy stuff moved out first and foremost, and then sage, Ho'oponopono, anything like that's going to really, really help.
Do you find that you address any issues having to do with solar panels or electrical wires?
Yeah, solar panels, people have asked, and I tend not to find them, because when I do a healing on the house, I tend to do a healing on the whole house, which will include any bolt-ons. But electrical wiring, I would call it technopathic stress. So it could be things like a nearby mobile mast or cell phone mast in the States. Before anybody says, what's a mobile mast, electricity pylons. But because it's man-made energy, there's a lot you can do, A, to heal it, and B, to actually stop it coming into the house. And again, it's using intent, it's using the healing of Mother Earth, the healing of the universe, to be able to, if you like, with a mobile mast, is just to fill it up with light and love. And again, just asking for that detrimental energy to be removed, and then putting it in a bubble of white light and putting a mirror, almost a bit like the old disco ball, but you put mirrors on the inside to stop any further detrimental energies leaving that particular cell phone mast.
Excellent.
So there's many ways of tackling it.
Yes, that's good. So it doesn't have to be debilitating.
No.
There are things to do with it. And do you ever work with crystals? I'm just curious, because that's one of the things I do.
You can see all my crystals behind me. Yes, all the time.
No, it's hard to see. I see your prayer flags, and I see your...
Yeah, I've got prayer flags. I've got quite a number of crystals in there. And
behind on your shelf.
Yeah, yes. And there's a big one over there. Can you see the yellow one?
Can we see the yellow one? Probably.
It's a big piece of citrine in the corner.
That's a citrine. That's a beauty. Yeah. I love that.
Whenever I get crystals, I always apologise to them first and foremost, because they've had a fairly horrendous journey getting here. They were happy under the earth. They've been smashed to pieces, tumbled in acid or tumbled. So I always apologise to them, and then just program them. Just, again, that white light from above, white light from Mother Earth, apologising, and just say, right, we're now cooperating with the best of friends. I will work with you if you work with me, because I just feel that holding a crystal in your hand gives it the energy that you need, a bit like a quartz watch.
Yes.
It needs a battery to actually make it work.
Yes.
So by holding a crystal in your hand and just waiting for that lovely burst of energy to come through, yeah, I love them.
And do you program them to self-heal themselves, or do you actually haul them all out into the sun or into the...
No, because there were about 8 or 9 that regularly come with me when I'm doing a talk or doing a course, because I can't leave without them. I can hear them sort of chattering away in the cupboard. But a lot of these, because I tend to clear my room every morning anyway, they tend to be cleared.
I see.
So I've lost crystals over the years. I've buried them in the garden, and the elementals take them. So it's cost me quite a lot of money over the time, because I put a little something with it, that disappears, the crystal goes. I'm thinking, come on, guys, I hope you're enjoying it. So most of them stay in here. Most of them get cleansed by, if you like an ultrafine mesh net of light and love being pulled through them.
Yes.
Just making sure they're sparkly, and whichever one wants to work with me, I normally get something that says, I want to need to work with that one today, or this one. They're great.
You're such a delight. So tell me your books again by title. So you have the first one.
The one is just simply titled Heal Your Home.
Heal Your Home.
The second one was Spirit and Earth, which is very much Tim and I cooperating to write a book about spirituality, really modern day spirituality.
And we're talking about Tim Walter, who I did a Wisdom Keepers interview with, which you can find on the Wisdom Keepers. Yeah,
I've seen it and I enjoyed it. And Tim's a very, very close friend of mine and lives half an hour up the road in the Dales. And then the third one I wrote was Heal Your Home Too. Now, you can get them either from my website, although if you're not living in England, the postage is fairly prohibitive these days. But otherwise, Amazon sell it, and I think various bookshops will sell it or sell them.
Okay. And do you have a newsletter or something where you're going to let people know about your online course? Or
I do. Yep. If they log on to my website, the dowsingspirits.co.uk, at the very bottom of the page, leave your email address and I will send a newsletter out. In fact, I sent one out this morning called Entanglements, which is teaching people how to be able to get rid of some of those memories that get stuck in your head that you can't move on, that you repeat. So that's just gone out. So if anybody wants a copy of that, just email me and I'll send it to them. Newsletters, if I get a message from upstairs to say, you're talking about entanglements today, I've got to think, well, what are entanglements? Then I've got to try and work through over sort of several weeks to actually find out what they are. And then do a newsletter.
Is this blog so whatever goes out in your newsletter is in a blog on your website as well?
It is. If you go up, I think if you go up to the top right-hand corner, it says about me, and then the newsletters are in there. So it's got all the past newsletters as well.
Oh, good. Okay. So people can catch up.
They can, indeed.
It's been a sheer delight, Adrian. Really, thank you for joining us on Wisdom Keepers of Earth. And I look forward to further conversations with you.
I look forward to meeting you as well when you come over to the UK as well.
Thank you so much.
Right. It's lovely to see you. Thanks again.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Namaste.